To the Reform Dallas election series. My name is Micah Moore. Barry Jacobs is, of course, alongside. We will be your moderators for the District 2 Candidate Forum from Whiskey and Politics.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the forum. We'd also like to introduce Soraya Santos, for those of you who haven't met her, and Millie Domenech, who are going to be helping us in this forum with timekeeping and technical duties. Reform Dallas is an informal organization of Dallasites that's committed to honest and transparent local government. You may be one of the 12,000 members of our Reform Dallas Facebook group. If you're not, we'd love for you to join us. We also offer independent journalism on the web, where you'll find the city's very best guide to our municipal elections. You should check it out at reformdallas.io. Again, that's reformdallas.io. Now, Reform Dallas does not make candidate endorsements, although our members have opinions like everybody else. The point of these forums is to let the candidates speak to all of us and to take their best shot at earning our vote. We want this to be fair and an illuminating experience for everybody here.
Thank you, Barry. We'll have two segments. In the first segment, each candidate gets a short intro. Then we'll move to prepared questions that each candidate will answer. The intro and those question responses are limited at 2 minutes. For the second segment, we'll open up for audience questions. So stick around for that. You can go ahead and submit your questions now in the Zoom chat, anytime. We're monitoring that, and we'll call on you as soon as we're ready for that audience participation. And one last thing, we're publishing the recorded forums on our website and in our Facebook group. So by participating, you give us express permission to do exactly that. And with that, here are candidates in District 2, Jennifer Cortez, Michael Fetzer, Jesse Moreno. Each have graciously joined us tonight, and welcome. Thank you.
And Rob, go ahead, Mike.
Raha Asadi and Sania Syed had other commitments, but both will perhaps join us later tonight. We'll keep our fingers crossed and introduce them when they join.
And just a housekeeping note, if we do have additional candidates join, we're going to drop our 2-minute response times back to 90 seconds in order to get through as many questions as we can. So please keep that in mind, candidates, and also our timekeeper, Soraya.
Okay, here we go. Jennifer, please go ahead. You have 2 minutes to tell us who you are and why we should vote for you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Cortez. I am running for City Council District 2 because it is our time. I have been an activist for 17 years. I am one of the co-founders for the North Texas Dream Team. I am here in District 2. When my grandmother came to Dallas, she came to District 2. She lived in Little Mexico with her cousin, who would later become the first Latina to ever graduate from SMU Law School. And my grandmother fought for me, cousin fought for people, my mother fought for me, and it taught me and it instilled that value to always fight for everyone, because we're all family. And in a time like this in COVID, where a lot of the marginalized communities in my districts in East Dallas and West Dallas East Dallas and Webb Chapel and in areas over by Love Field are being are dying from COVID in unprecedented numbers, and lack access to vaccines, who didn't have access to heat and power and to water, that it is time for us to stand up and to make the change. So what I do for a living is community development. I work with budgets. I manage millions of dollars to help put that money back into the community. And I'm just looking to do that now at a public level. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running. I have experience in community development, like I said, for more than 17 years. I've been doing many programs on the ground in education, in sustainability, and all types of things. And I am excited to be here. I'm excited to be in this race and excited to see what can happen for District 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now, Michael, tell us a little bit about yourself and why we would want to vote for you.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you guys for putting this on tonight. I know myself and all the other candidates really appreciate the opportunity to speak with the constituency a little more and, get some more face time with the voters. So it's always a great thing. So thank you for that. But I am running in District 2. I've been here in Dallas for about a little over half a decade now. So I was not born in Dallas, but like many of us, I got here to Texas as soon as I could. So I have been professionally working in the healthcare staffing industry, both as a job creator and employer. So I have a strong business background, and like I said, I was not born here in Dallas. I actually was born in the suburbs of Chicago, and so I left Chicago to come to Dallas right after I finished up school, because of the stronger state and local economy and the inherent Texas values and Dallas values that, we all love. And so I am running because about two or 3 months ago now, at about 1:30 in the morning, 5 gunshots go off 2 doors down from where I'm staying at the time. And, it took the police over a half hour to respond. We see 2 people in our neighborhood get carried out in bad condition in stretchers, and it really had this profound impact on our community. And so I have been involved with the community ever since I've been here, in a voluntary or, community involvement. I have founded a community crime watch here in District 2 that I am the founder and chairman of. I've worked with the North Texas Food Bank, Dallas Pets Alive, Deep Ellum Urban Gardens. So I've been very involved in the community, and I figured that, after that shooting occurred and had such a impact on our neighborhood, that was kind of my call to action to start my campaign here in District 2. So I am running for a increased public safety. I think any cities or anywhere in the world, prosperity starts. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Now, Jesse, it's your turn. Tell us about yourself and why we should vote for you.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you all for inviting us this evening. My name is Jesse Moreno. I'm a third-generation Dallas site. My wife and I are raising our daughter in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. Ever since I was a kid, I've been wanting to be involved in public service. To make Dallas the place I love, better for my neighbors, my friends, and my family. I was engaged at a young age while I was still in high school. As a teenager, being appointed as chairman to the Dallas Youth Commission, making policy decisions while I was still a teenager in high school, serving on the DISE teen board, and then later serving on most recently serving on the Dallas Park board for the past 7.5 years as vice chairman, representing the constituents of District 2. I'm running because I've been effective, I've been accountable. I've shown my constituents that they can rely on me. I've built relationships with my community leaders throughout the district. And when I see the progress that has been made, when we see a playground that has been implemented and we get to see kids enjoying themselves, being able to play on the playground, that brings me so much joy. And I want to be able to take that to the next level and work with every level of city government, from sanitation all the way up to economic development. And so I have the experience, I have the accountability, and I look forward to working to enhance the quality of life for all residents in District 2.
Okay. Pardon me. Okay, thank you, candidates. Let's move on now to the questions. Here are the ground rules. Micah or I will ask you a question, and each candidate will get 2 minutes to respond. If we have more candidates join, we will drop that back to 90 seconds. If we feel an answer needs a follow-up, we'll ask it, and we'll give the candidate and his opponents a reasonable amount of time to respond. We're interested in your ideas. We want to know how you'll approach the job. So let's get started. Micah, go ahead.
Our first question is about environment and sustainability. What is your plan to ensure that the environmental issues that mostly plague West and Southern Dallas, past issues include things such as Shingle Mountain, what will you do to help make sure those are prevented from happening again And we will start with Jennifer this time, and go Jennifer, Michael, Jesse.
Great. So, yeah, Shingle Mountain, for example, was an issue with zoning and an issue with targeting a certain community. So I think we would look at how we can get zoning to work for us instead of against us. I think it starts there. I think it starts with accountability, and it starts with visibility. If the area and the community knew what was coming into their neighborhoods, and they would have been able to stop it, right? So I think it starts there. And what is the CCAP? I know was a plan that was brought to the table. It was, a lot of work, but not a lot of results. So when it comes to environmental, we need to do more. We need to add more to that. We have a zero waste program. We don't have a zero waste program, and we have, areas that you're supposed to be able to, like compost areas that aren't being used for compost. And there's over 40,000 pounds of produce that go to the trash, when we also are dealing with insecurity and hunger, food insecurity, and we're dealing with water insecurity. There's a lot of waste that happens. And then on top of that, like I said, CCAP is an environmental plan that's great start, a lot of work, but not a lot of results. And so we need something that's more. So my plan would be to add to that, to add a zero waste plan into that, to add a way to keep our air clean and safe, to add a way that's equitable, so that things like Shingle Mountain cannot happen in communities that are very vulnerable. Because that is a history, that is something that's happened in Dallas before, not just with Shingle Mountain, and it's something that needs to stop. So we need to have people on this council that'll be bold enough to make real environmental bold changes. So thank you.
Go ahead, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as Ms. Cortez just mentioned, with the voters not being aware, or the neighborhood not being aware of the situation, I think that, first of all, we need better communication, making our constituents and our voters aware of what's going on in City Hall. I mean, as I've been, over the past month or so, talking to thousands of constituents here in District 2, I mean, you'd be shocked at the amount of people that simply aren't aware of what's going on. So first, it starts with better communication. And, it also goes back to more transparency in City Hall. So we need to be more fiscally responsible with how we're spending our money. We need to be, supporting and encouraging more green initiatives. I know we recently had, a new Uber headquarters coming in, and Tesla's, looking to relocate as well. And so I think that, especially the green car initiatives and things like that, we need to be promoting both, public and private sectors to promote more green initiatives. And like I said, it goes back to more communication with the constituency, so people are aware of what's going on, so that our voters can give their feedback prior to decisions being made. And then it goes back to accountability at City Hall. We need to be fiscally responsible with the money that we do have. We have a big budget here in Dallas, but if we're spending our money poorly, it's not going to do us any good. So it goes back to, transparency, communication, and promoting green initiatives.
Thank you, Michael. And I'm sorry I hadn't repeated the question, but we'll do so for each candidate for the rest of the forum. Jesse, you're up. What is your plan to ensure that the environmental issues that mostly plague West and Southern Dallas are prevented from happening again?
Thank you. We continue doing the initiatives that I led at the park boards with my experience on the park board. We moved from moving to low emission machinery, making sure that the emissions were not causing an effect on the environment, but also making sure that we're protecting the workers that are handling that machinery, making sure that we're taking their health into consideration. We can look at the Forward Dallas plan, which is a plan, but it's outdated. So we need to make sure that we're following up, that we're being innovative as we change those plans. And accountability is the end result at the end of the day. We have to make sure that City Hall is accountable, that we're listening to the residents of the city. And my green initiatives they're simple. We got to protect our environment. We need to be good stewards of public land. It's our responsibility to protect the green infrastructure that we have. And we did a phenomenal job in our park system by doing away with blue poison, making sure that Roundup is no longer being used in our parks for the safety, again, of the kids playing on those playgrounds, but also for our city workers who are working tirelessly out in the field. So it's important that we're also protecting our city staff from any sort of chemical spread. And we gotta build more green. We gotta go to lead certified buildings, and we have to be conscious of Dallas is the fastest growing heat island in the entire country, and we have to do more. We have to build biowells, making sure that we're converting parking lots into parks, more green space. And that's why I also fought very tirelessly to put in a park land dedication ordinance so that we have more green space for our future generations. As Dallas is growing rapidly, we have to be sure that we protect the little green space that we do have.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question will be on jobs. We'll do these in the order of Michael first, then Jess, and then Jennifer. For the candidates, what is your commitment and strategy for establishing more workforce and job opportunities equitably throughout Dallas, including job opportunities at a variety of entry points and not just entry level in the south and southern sectors of Dallas? Michael, if you could take a crack at that first for us.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, specifically targeting areas that have been, in the past more marginalized or kind of forgotten. It goes back to, site selection within City Hall. So when we have, our UPS, Amazon, whatever the flavor of the week is, wanting to move to Dallas, like many businesses do, we need to make sure that when we are looking at site selection, we are incentivizing these private sector businesses to do business in the areas that need jobs the most. So whether that's, a TIF, a tax abatement program, we do need to do something to incentivize them to be doing business there. We lost over the course of COVID, I think 3,200 local businesses went out of business during COVID. And so we have a lot of ground to catch up on. But we need to start putting local Dallas businesses and Dallas constituents first. So, we don't need to be importing any talent. We need to be putting our people to work. And like I mentioned, to get those businesses here, we need to incentivize them, whether that's a private public sector incentive, whether that's a tax abatement, whether that's a TIF. I mean, we could tax deferrals. There's many things that we do have the ability to do in City Hall to make that happen. And so honestly, like I said, it just kind of goes back to making sure that we're putting our people first. Another big thing is we need to make the vendor process easier to do business with the city of Dallas. I hear so many times these local businesses saying that they want to be more engaged and, bid and do things with the city of Dallas, but the vendor process either isn't available, it's complicated, there's a lot of redundancies. And so I think we need less oversight in that regard and make it easier for local Dallas businesses to do business with the city.
Okay, fantastic. I will read the question again for Jesse. Jesse, what's your commitment and strategy to establishing more workforce and job opportunities equitably throughout Dallas, including job opportunities at a variety of entry points, not just at the entry level in the south and southern sectors of Dallas?
Yeah, as a small business owner myself, I know the importance of hiring within the community that we're going into. On the worker skill level, something that I would like to implement is over in San Antonio, we have a day labor program, making sure that we're protecting those individuals with skill sets, and that making sure that they're not being taken advantage of, making sure that they're having the resources awarded to them. Again, with my experience on the park board, when Spectra came in with our public-private partnership, is one of the requirements was that they get work talent from the immediate community, making sure that people can walk to those jobs, making sure that people that are being impacted by a new development, that they have the first opportunity to get those jobs, and making sure that they're being paid a living wage. And that was something that we fought very hard for, making sure that people, when there were city contracts, that people are being paid appropriately. And we have to do more to bring jobs into the community. We know our transportation system, we can't rely on DART. That's a regionalism transportation system, and we have to bring jobs to the community. So you have my commitment to making sure that we work with the private business entity to bring jobs to the community rather than dispersing people out into the different areas of town.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Jennifer, the same question to you. What's your commitment to and strategy to establishing more workforce and job opportunities equitably throughout Dallas, including job opportunities, a variety of entry points, and not just entry level in the south and southern sectors of Dallas?
Well, first off, I think we have an access issue. I think we have a huge access issue, access to and a mobility issue, which makes this so complex, makes it so difficult. So, access to fair wages. So, Fair 15 is something as a for city employees definitely I support. It's actually not enough, but it's something. And then also let's look at COVID as an example. And I know Michael also brought this up, but how many people have lost their jobs? But what business owners, small business owners, had access to those funds? And how easy was it to get COVID funding as a small business owner? I'm a Latina small business owner. I have my own business and have clientele. And I also it was difficult for me to find those rounds to be able to get there. But if I was an immigrant, and as 25%, about 300,000 people in this city I had no access to small business funds. I had no access to workers' rights. I had no access to that. So it's about also allowing that and seeing how much of our city actually can access these things. And as I said, on mobility, we have a mobility issue. So how do we need to make sure that with DART and with other groups that we start figuring out, we create partnerships with because mobility is not only transportation, it's also Wi-Fi. We're number 4 in the country without access to Wi-Fi. So how do we create, but yet AT&T is headquartered in downtown. How do we create these relationships as a city and as these private-public partnerships to be able to make this happen so that jobs and economic growth can be available to the people that need it the most, the areas that need it the most, because they're neglected. And we need to figure out how we fix that. And I think it's through access, it's through mobility, and then it's through equity. And I promise you that as a city council member, I will fight for that, because that is what I stand on and what I do. And I will continue to fight for access, equity, and mobility. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next question is focused on the city budget. We'll answer this in order with Jesse, then Jennifer, then Michael. The question is, and we'll repeat it for all, is what specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if elected? And what are your budget priorities for District 2?
I believe in participatory budgeting, making sure that we're engaging our community, the residents, letting them tell us what their greatest needs are. My priorities would be infrastructure. East Dallas, District 2, is one of the oldest parts of the entire city of Dallas. And we know that our roads are deteriorating, our light infrastructure is non-existent. If there's an accident, someone physically from the street department has to go out there and reprogram the lights. We need to be able to centralize our light infrastructure system from one space to making sure that we can do that remotely and effectively to have the flow of cars moving, and sidewalks. Sidewalks are a mode of transportation for a lot of these people. So we need to make sure that right now the city of Dallas says that the responsibility of sidewalks are that of the adjacent property owner. So that means someone living in a home with a broken sidewalk either has to pay that out of their pocket 100%. We do have programs in hand that are 50-50 split between the city of Dallas and the property owner. That's helpful, but some people still aren't able to do that. And so the city of Dallas needs to pick up that responsibility 100%, and we should be responsible to making sure that every part of the city of Dallas, every part of the district has strong sidewalks and mobility to get people to and from work. So infrastructure would be my number 1 priority.
Okay, thank you very much. Jennifer, I believe you're up next, and I'll read the question. What specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if you're elected? And what are your budget priorities for District 2? And I'm sorry, Jennifer, you're on mute, so hold that thought for just a moment. If you could go ahead and unmute.
There we are. Awesome. And I'm sorry, do you mind repeating the question? I was yelling, I'm on mute. And I guess y'all probably couldn't hear me. Do you mind repeating the question one more time?
I can, Barry.
Wow, this is the problem with Zoom, but we'll struggle through. What specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if you're elected? And what are your budget priorities for District 2?
Got it. Okay, great. So, so I also believe in participatory budgeting. I think we need to have the community to have access to this. And my number one thing when looking at budget is reallocating budget to community resources. We need to go at what's the root of the issues that we really have, right? So if we're looking at the unsheltered community, for example, there's so much, a small amount of money that goes to helping and create those resources for that. And my district suffers from a large percentage of that. If we're looking at housing, an area that's neglected in my district is the area above in Lake Webb Chapel, over by Medical District as well, over by Love Field. We were giving water to them still. We've still having to give water to them. We started getting food to them and everything on February 17th, and they still don't have access. They don't have access. They're also being evicted from their homes. There is a housing issue. So I think as far as budget concerns, the first would be, community resources, but we're looking at housing. We're looking at reimagining public safety. So why is it that there's such, 516 million, and even if we subtract, why does that go so much to policing? What is it that we could do to work better? Not to necessarily take a huge cut out, but figure out how can we reallocate those things to help our communities, because our communities are suffering, because people are dying, because a paletero died in East Dallas because he froze to death. And that is horrible. And these stories are traumatic, but they are happening all around us. And the people that we saw when we're trying to give water right here in District 2, it's bad. It's really bad. And so we need to start looking at this budget to how we create community resources to get to the root of all these issues, so that we have less people going to creating a pipeline to prison, or a pipeline to deportation, so that we have less people that go hungry, so we have less people that are without water. There's so many different Dallases even within this district that we don't realize that the biggest time we have. Oh, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And Michael, you're up. Question is on the budget. What specific budget recommendations will you propose this cycle if elected? And what are your priorities in the budget for District 2?
So thank you so much. So I think that's something that we need to start talking about is zero-based budgeting. I think that there's no blanket solutions to that. We have a $3.88, just shy of $4 billion budget here in Dallas. And I just want to address something that Ms. Cortez mentioned. I think it's, important to keep in mind when we're talking about our funding for our public safety that, a lot of people like to talk about 2/3 of our budget going to that, but I think that gets misconstrued a lot. Our budget, our total city budget is just shy of, like I said, approximately $4 billion. But the budget that people are referring to when it comes to public safety is our operating budget, which is only about 1.3 to 1.5 billion. So it's a dramatically lower number. And so my budgeting priorities, number one is public safety. Let me throw some quick stats at you. In 2020, we had 253 homicides in Dallas, which is a 23% increase from 2019. By the way, 2019 was one of the highest crime rates that we've had in Dallas's history, especially over the last few decades. Our property crimes are now higher in Dallas than they are in Chicago. Our, gang violence has increased 148% over the last 3 years. And so I think any city's prosperity starts and stops at public safety. All of these other issues are very worthwhile and very important, but, it starts and stops with the public safety. If our community isn't safe, no one's going to want to move here. No businesses are going to want to open up here. And so I think that's where we have to start the conversation. And outside of that, infrastructure, as Mr. Moreno mentioned, is very important. I think we need to start looking at working with our county commissioners more closely, because, we at the county level get funding for the same kinds of things. We can also look at ETJ jurisdiction. So, the county controlled parts of the city, we could shut that down and then take on that financial burden, but that would allow the city the opportunity to develop its own comprehensive plan to address our decaying infrastructure, which is very important. And then, of course, we have our property taxes, which have risen. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Michael. For those who may be joining, I want to reintroduce, this is the District 2 Candidate Forum from Reform Dallas in our Dallas City Council Forum series, which will continue for weeks. We are in the middle of District 2. Barry has our next question on public safety.
Actually, I'm pleased to point out that Sana Syed, another candidate in District 2, has just joined us. Welcome, Sana. I've asked you to unmute yourself so that you can go ahead and join us. Sana, what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and give you 2 minutes, as we did the other candidates, to introduce yourself and tell us why we should vote for you. We'll ask the last question that we just asked the other candidates and give you 2 minutes to respond to that as well. And then we'll go forward with all 4 candidates with the remainder of our questions. For the remainder of our questions, candidates will drop the time for your response to 90 seconds so that we can try to get through as many questions as we can. So with that, Sana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you so much. So you're up. You've got 2 minutes. Tell us who you are and why we should vote for you for City Council.
Well, I'm sorry I'm calling you from the road. I already had a trip planned, and Soraya and I spoke about this last night, so I wanted to at least jump in for as much as I could. Again, thank you for hosting this. I look upon this organization and this group fondly because they're clearly people who are motivated to stay informed about the city, and that's something that I have a deep affection for as well. My background is I'm a former news anchor reporter in this market. I was with Fox 4 and CBS 11, and I dropped out of the TV game and decided that I wanted to pivot in my career and became a spokesperson for the city of Arlington and then the city of Dallas. So I was actually on the job 1 month before the Ebola crisis happened there, and I was there for the July 7th shooting when 5 officers were killed also. So I finished up at City Hall, finished my PhD in public policy and urban planning, and then I moved on to commercial real estate multifamily, which is where I am now. I work as Executive Vice President of Community Outreach there, and I have my own nonprofit, which is Kimia International. So we do human rights documentary filmmaking, and we run a trauma therapy program for women who are survivors of trauma here in Dallas, and it's boxing, yoga, and therapy. And I'm running for this seat because I love this city. There's just no other way for me to put it. I love the possibilities. I love how much people care about the city, but more importantly, there are issues here that I feel passionately about, and I feel that I could definitely provide some leadership in addressing those. And that's why I threw my name in the hat, and I'm honored to be a part of this group of candidates.
Hey, fantastic, and you're great with time. Let me just re-ask the question that Michael just answered, and then we'll go on to the next one. What specific budget recommendations will you propose this budget cycle if you're elected, and what are your budget priorities for District 2?
I will tell you that number 1 on my list is going to be public safety. And I know that you'll see most candidates running for City Hall saying that public safety is a major concern of theirs. But the current council member last year voted to defund the police by about $7 million in overtime. And when I speak with community leaders, that support may not have entirely been there last summer when that decision was made. And so I am interested in seeing how we can approach addressing a trauma-informed public safety model, and that would incorporate addressing the re-traumatization of individuals, particularly youth, but then also addressing secondary trauma that police and fire endure on a daily basis. And I feel by exploring that model, which is already being implemented in different parts of the United States, we can actually address some of the issues in our community and build those bridges that we really failed to build last year. The second issue is going to be homelessness. District 2 sees more homelessness on any given day than the rest of the city does. And that's another missed opportunity that we have not really adequately addressed in the past several years. I think we were making some really good progress, and then when COVID hit, the homeless population was really abandoned. There again, I think there's an opportunity to have a thoughtful approach to homelessness. I don't look at the homeless population as a group that I don't want them there. They need to leave from my district. I don't see it that way. They're human beings. And I think when we see them as human beings and really start to address their needs, from transitional homelessness to chronic homelessness to episodic homelessness, and really start to separate that and divide and conquer the real issues that the homeless group is facing in our city, then we'll begin to actualize some changes there. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is simply the permitting process. It is taking way too long to get a permit through the city of Dallas, and that is hurting more than anything our affordable housing.
It's time. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Soraya. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
no worries. We're going to move on to the next question. We'll answer these in this order: Michael, Sana, Jesse, and then Jennifer. And a lot of you spoke about this topic on our last question, so it's a great segue. It's on public safety. And the question is, what can the city council do to specifically ensure that public safety is being considered without negatively affecting the most marginalized and underserved areas of the city? Michael, you're up. You have 90 seconds. And Michael's on mute. I'm sorry about that. Let's see what I can do. There you go. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question one more time? I apologize.
Now it's me. What can the city council do to specifically ensure public safety is being considered without negatively affecting the most marginalized and underserved areas of the city? 90 seconds.
Absolutely. So as Sana had just mentioned, our current city council incumbent was one of the people that did vote to defund our police overtime budget by $7 million. We're in March and we've already hit the 50% mark of that overtime budget. So like I was just saying in the previous question, it goes back to making sure our police officers, our firefighters, our code enforcement, all of our first responders have the money and resources that they need to operate efficiently. Our priority 1 call response time, and so priority 1 for those that don't know is murders, carjacking, kidnapping, the very worst kind of crime, is 9 minutes. Imagine being in your home and someone's trying to break in and rob you and it takes the police almost 10 minutes to get there. I mean, when, seconds matter, police take minutes. So we need to make sure that we have more police, but not just more police, but police that a diverse department that reflects the diversity of our community. We have our, community police oversight board, if that is represented by those marginalized neighborhoods, I think that will give them a voice as well and help build that, community trust that has been missing in our DPD. I mean, our DPD morale is low. And so I think that the community really needs to get behind them, not just with funding, but, with a more open and clear line of communication. I also think that we need to address the problem we have in the DA's office. Crusoe and the DA has already stated that property crimes under $750 in theft, he's not going to prosecute. I'm talking to these police officers almost every day now, and it's sad because they'll tell me, hey, Michael, we're arresting these people in the morning, and by the afternoon, they're out. So I think that the DA's office also has an issue we need to address.
Okay, thanks, Michael. We'll move on to Sana with the same question. What can the city council do to specifically, ensure public safety is being considered without negatively affecting the most marginalized and underserved areas of the city? Sana, I've asked you to unmute. Hopefully you can.
Yep, I'm good. So when we talk about the marginalization of any group, of any human being, it really comes down to, again, addressing unreconciled trauma in the community and building those bridges. And what that means is bringing people to the table that, that we're serving. And, I had a city manager once, it was the city manager of Arlington, and he would make the org chart. He would put, all the city departments, city council, and at the very top of the org chart, it would be the people we're serving. And so, I do support our law enforcement. 2016, I lost my ex-husband to brain cancer, and that was 1 week before July 7th. And I called 2016 my summer of death. And standing with thousands of strangers holding hands in the summer heat, in solidarity with our police officers who risked their lives protecting the rights of the protesters who were on the streets of Dallas. Going from there to a few years later, defunding the police by $7 million. I don't agree with that. Again, I think it's about how do we build the bridges with the community, and that requires bringing the people we serve to the table to have those conversations and really seeing how we can build a bridge on policy so we're not continuing to alienate any particular group, any particular person that we're serving.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go to Jesse now. Jesse, what can the city council do to specifically ensure public safety is being considered without negatively affecting the most marginalized and underserved areas of the city?
Yeah, we have a rare opportunity to hit restart with the new police chief that Dallas just hired. So I'm really excited to be able to work with the police chief and the community leaders and to working with them, knowing what the needs are, training our officers, making sure that we're training them on police relations, on community relations. And it's going to take, it's going to take talking to each other. It's going to take working together, working with our community leaders and working through police reform. And I truly believe that having our NPOs, our neighborhood police officers, is the way to build those relations. And it's just communication, talking to one another and building relationships.
Great, thanks. Jennifer, I think I've unmuted you. If you could answer the same question, what can the city council do to specifically ensure public safety is being considered without negatively affecting the most marginalized and underserved areas of the city?
Right, so a lot of the previous candidates have talked about increasing police and not taking. The thing is, we have more, so our new police chief came from San Jose, and we have 3 times the amount, we have about the same size as San Jose, Dallas is, but yet we have 3 times the amount of police officers in San Jose does. And I know, and I agree that it's about bridging these relationships and bridging the community that you serve, but what do you do with a community that's not being served? If you have it, if we're able to allocate resources, create these, create access to things like basic needs in our communities, then we'll have safe communities and we'll have safe neighborhoods. But we don't want to keep doing the same thing if it's hurting and it's separating our city even more. So so I would say that we would need to reallocate resources, reimagine policing, not have looking at mental health, looking at if we took officers and put them, directly to violent crimes, but then also allocated officers that would be directly to mental health services, the Right Care Act, and having more funding into that so that it could actually be, if you try to call it now, you'll never be able to get in. It's not, and we have people that aren't able to answer calls and aren't able to answer, response times are horrible, but that's not an issue for more police. That's an issue for the system needing to be fixed, needing to be reimagined, needing to do things differently. And in a time like this, we need to do things differently. We need to create a community that has resources. Thank you.
Okay, Micah, the next question, please.
All right, and this one is about housing. Again, you will have 90 seconds to respond. We'll repeat the question for you. Start with Sonia, then Jesse, Michael, and then Jennifer. Sonia, what is your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable housing in the city of Dallas, understanding that affordable means different things to different people? Sonia, go ahead.
Yeah. So when it comes to affordable housing in our city, my current role with Nicholas Residential Real Estate Family Company, we own 13 assets in Oklahoma and Texas, and properties, right? But for me, when making sure that every person who resides within the city's limits has a place to call home, and I think some opportunities to do that include partnering with nonprofits like City Square, which are currently building homes for some of our poorest in our community, and do it with a thoughtful care, with a look at substance abuse and mental health. And I think that when we talk about affordable housing, it really comes down to A, the permitting process, but B, also creating opportunity and partnerships within organizations that are already within that space, so that we're not constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. That's something that we've struggled with in the city. Someone's always constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, but the work is already being done. There are leaders currently trying to make the space for that to happen. And I think that that's where the opportunity is. Our permitting process, you talk to developers and they'll tell you that it takes 6 to 9 months to get a permit. And these are developers who want to create affordable housing in our city. And when they get so frustrated, they'll go to every city around us but Dallas because of how frustrated they are with our process. And so I think there we have an opportunity for innovation and bringing in some technology. Thank you.
Okay, the same question will go to Jesse. Jesse, what's your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable housing in the city of Dallas, understanding that affordable means different things to different people?
Sure, I'll start with that. To me, it's about obtainable housing, making sure that people who are working below minimum wage are being awarded the opportunity to buy a house or to rent an apartment. We have to work with our AMI index calculator, making sure that that's moving up and down according to the housing market. We can look at the neighborhood empowerment zones. We have over 20,000 homes that are needed out there. We can loosen up the MF2 zoning requirements here in East Dallas along the Ross corridor, where we're zoning for as much as we want to keep single family homes. The only way to get more stock in the market is by building multiple units, more units, allowing when PDs come into effect, allowing those PDs, those developers, allowing them more units to be built if they're going to be offering affordable housing, building in high opportunity zones. And at the end of the day, we just have to open up implement the housing policy that's already been adopted. And I think that's the focus that we need to lead on, is adopting the housing policy that's already been, that's at City Hall ready to go.
Okay, thanks. So Michael Fetzer, the same question to you. What's your strategic plan, pardon me, my tongue is tangled. Your strategic plan to address the lack of affordable housing in the city of Dallas, understanding that affordable means different things to different people?
Sure. So I think there's a multi-pronged approach that we can take here. So as Sana said, we don't need to try and reinvent the wheel here. I think that what we need in this instance is less government intervention. I've spoken with a lot of people in the real estate industry. I have a lot of friends that work in the real estate industry. And the real estate industry, fun fact, is actually the biggest contributor to the Texas GDP and has been since 2012. So it is a vital part of our economy. And as Ms. Saeed had mentioned, our Sustainable Development Committee, it's a heck of a thing to get the permits required to develop and get past that development and pre-planning stage to the point of closeout orders and completion of projects. So we need to eliminate the redundancies. We need a less oversight and regulation in that. And then I think we also need to promote home ownership. So I would propose that we have a tax deferral or a reduction in tax for first-time home buyers, or those that are we not only promote home ownership but protect ownership. So for those that are on a fixed income like Social Security or a dependent, if that property tax exceeds a certain percentage of their wage, I think we should be able to defer those property taxes until they either move out, turn it into a rental property, whatever that may be. And as I mentioned, for first-time home buyers, I think we need to look at having maybe the first year reduce their property tax by 30%, second year 15%, third year 10%, so on and so forth. But as I mentioned at the beginning, it all goes back down to less regulation. We need to eliminate the redundancies and simplify and give more clarity back to our developers in terms of the Sustainable Development Committee and getting those permits in place. Not only that, but I think we also need to shortlist those private developers that are willing to include mixed income or low level or Section 8 housing, affordable housing. I think we need to shortlist those to the top of the list so that we can address this issue of affordable housing in the city.
Thank you. And our last response will be from Jennifer. Again, the question is, what is your strategic plan to address affordable housing in the city of Dallas? And understanding that affordable housing means different things to different people.
Right. So thank you. So one of the issues I'm actually writing on is that housing is a human right. My community, my district has a lot of unsheltered people that live here, and we are suffering from what we could call gentrification. I think there is one of the candidates had said earlier, to work with nonprofits, but in like City Square, for example, which I know they do great work in the city. However, these affordable housing units that they made were $900 for 350 square feet. That isn't affordable to the common, to a person that is low income. That isn't affordable to them. That isn't, there's also a parking, I mean, District 2 isn't just East Dallas. It also goes all the way to Cedar Springs as well and over to that area. There's a parking lot behind S4 that they're changing to also to apartments, you know, and so it's what is going to be the affordable housing options there. I've lived in this district and you cannot find a home for less than $350,000. How is that affordable for people that want to live here? There are communities that have been cut out. As I said earlier, my grandmother came to this district. She lived in Little Mexico. Little Mexico is gone. How do we, so affordable housing is one of the biggest issues I have, but it's housing not just for the people like myself that are trying to, buy a home and be able to do that, but also for the unsheltered community that are all on our streets. The Camp Rondo was in my district.
It's time.
Okay, pardon me. So we're going to end our prepared questions now. We're going to move on to the next segment of our program, which will be audience questions. Omar Jimenez, you'll be first up, so if you could get ready. Thanks, candidates. As I said, we're moving on to the second segment of our program. Here are the ground rules for this segment. We'll call on you, we'll unmute you. Please keep your questions brief. We don't need an introduction. We don't need any sort of exposition. Just read your question so that we can get as many people as possible. There won't be any follow-ups, and the candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to these so that we can get as many questions as we possibly can in. So with that, Omar, are you unmuted? Go ahead and read your question.
Thank you, Barry. My question to all of y'all is, once you get elected to the city council, how can you be a voice to improve DART and to work with the board to improve services across the system and in parts of the city that don't still have any DART services?
And if we could go to Sana first for that. Sana, are you unmuted? Can you go ahead and answer for us?
Great. Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, when it comes to DART, I think that we've made some important progress there, and I have a lot of faith in some of our board members that are serving in their capacity. And so, Jesse and I have been on so many of these calls, but in one of these calls, what we were discussing was about the actual, what DART is actually succeeding in. And a study by UTA found that DART is only providing with our Dallas residents with access to 1% of jobs. And so I think this is the point that we have to push DART on, is where is the actual accessibility to where we're reaching the most amount of people for public transit. But I do have faith in the people who are currently in place, and I feel that there's plenty of opportunity to address that, but it will take money and it will take time.
Okay, thank you. We'll go next to Jennifer. Jennifer, I've asked you to unmute, and I'll read the question again really quickly. How can the city council be a voice and work with the DART board to improve services across the city and add to parts of the city that still don't have any form of service? Please go ahead, Jennifer.
So I think we need to do things differently. We need to reimagine the system as well. Like I said, our city suffers from a mobility issue. At 28 years old, I created my own company, and my first client was a Fortune 15 mobility company, Ford. So I know that through community, through working with, looking at things differently, that we're able to create. There is also DART you're able to get people to work in Plano, but you can't get people to work in South Dallas. That's an issue. So I think that we look at those and we see like where are our working families living, and where do we need to connect these dots, and you work with the board. I worked with DART board members when we were creating mobility solutions through Ford Mobility, and I'm happy about that collective. I'm happy about that collaboration. But I think there's more that we could do. I think there's more that we can work with, and that there's more people that want to reimagine this and really see, because mobility in this city will fix so many things. If we have mobility, there probably would have been a much better response to the storm. Like mobility, people will be able to get to their jobs better. So definitely, I would be a voice on that, because this is one of the top issues that I'm working that are for me. And then also working with the board would be something I'd be glad to do and continue to do. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Michael, if you could answer that question for us as well, how can the city council be a voice and work with the DART board to improve services across the city and add to the parts of the city that still don't have any form of services? You have a minute, Michael.
Absolutely. So I think there are two problems when it comes to DART that we have. So we have a ridership issue and we have an accessibility issue. So we don't have the ridership or people using DART to justify the expansion of accessibility. But then it goes back to, well, we don't have a lot of riders because those that would use public transportation aren't getting access to the places that they need to be. So as Ms. Saeed had mentioned, we do have a committee that I also have faith in and would be happy to work with. But I think the goal and exactly how we get there, I'm only 27 years old, and so I listen to my elders and I listen to the experts. I don't know what I don't know, and I'll be very honest about that. And so I'm happy to listen to the ideas, but I think the end goal that we need to get to is how can we get the people that need access to DART the most to the destination locations that they need to be at. So I think there's the bridge that we have to gap there and the two biggest obstacles that we face.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see, I think Jesse is the last candidate to answer. Jesse, if you could go ahead, how can the city be a voice and work with the DART board to improve services across the city and add to parts of the city that still don't have any form of services? You have a minute.
Yeah, so, city council has to be responsible about the board members that they appoint. We have to change the mindset of a regionalism transportation system to a local transportation system. When it's so inconvenient for one to hop on DART to get from one place to another. It takes 2 hours when it should really be a 10-15 minute ride. D2 is a great example of what I call boondoggle. Every time, just because we're awarded free money from the government doesn't mean we have to use it. Doesn't mean that because we're going to be able to double our money. We need to focus that money that we do have on the local transportation, getting people from South Dallas to North Dallas, from East Dallas to West Dallas, making sure it's affordable, making sure that people can commute and that it's also affordable. It's expensive to ride DART compared to other cities. And so D2 is one example that I would push back on because we have a lot of need already here in Dallas, and I feel that those dollars could be better utilized within the Dallas system rather than a second line that's basically duplicating the line. And if that rail is to fail, the entire system fails.
Thanks, Jesse. That's our time.
All right, and we're going to move along to another question from our audience, this one from John Vance. If you'll go ahead and unmute, John, we would love to hear your question about PD 193.
Yes, I'd like the candidates to tell us about their knowledge about Plan Development District 193 and if you think changes to it are necessary.
And this time we will start with Jesse, go to Jennifer, Michael, and then Sonia. So Jesse, go ahead.
So PD 193, for the most part, is in the Oaklawn area. It's mainly in District 14. There's parts that are in District 2. There's many sub-districts within the PD. I think that it is, when it was designed, was one of the most innovative urban planning for its time. It does need to be tweaked as any PD does from time to time. We know that there's the Oaklawn Committee. Something that I'm going to keep a close eye on is that there's the opportunity to pay a membership fee to be part of the Oaklawn Committee. And so typically we see developers that just swarm and apply for membership when their case is pending for approval, and then they fall off the face of the earth. And so something that I do like about PD 193 is that it gives the developer an incentive if they build affordable housing units. It lets them build more units if they go towards affordable housing. So that's my background on the 193.
All right, Jennifer, same question. Tell us about your knowledge of Planned Development District 193 and if you think changes to it are necessary.
So PD 193 is like Jesse was just saying, the part of the Oaklawn area. I would say that there are changes. As we want to. So beautiful thing about Oaklawn is the entrepreneurs that live there, the small business aspect of it, the bars that are owned by small business owners. That's the beautiful thing about that area, and protecting that is very important. So when you have housing, that comes in there, even with an affordable housing option, you have to also look at what is those affordable housing options, because you have Oaklawn community is also a safe community. My brother who came out in that area went there and lived there. So it's like, this is a safe community, but is it affordable to live here? So if you're young and you're wanting to be somewhere that you want to be safe, is affordable. And we have affordable housing options that are like, $1,200 a month or $900 a month for a small apartment. It's not really affordable. So what can we do to help incentivize that? And what can we do to make that plan better, so that we protect that community, we protect the heart of that community, as well as the small business owners, as well as people and young people that come to that area to feel safe.
Okay, fantastic. Pardon me.
Michael, you're up. Plan Development District 193. What's your knowledge and what changes are necessary, Michael?
Absolutely. So as the other candidates have mentioned, PD 193 was established to help promote and, discourage changes from the current zoning that was established, and, switch some of that commercial real estate to residential, and enhance the safety and property value. And I think that they've done a great job in increasing the property value. We have seen residential properties in Oaklawn dramatically increase, along with the rest of the city, in their property value. So I think that the initial goals that they set out to accomplish, for the most part, outside of, I would say the one thing they could still work on improving is moving some more off-site parking from street parking to, garages and things like that, underground parking, whatever may have you. But as times change, so do our policies. So, one of the big things about PD 193 was to, add variances or, barriers to change zoning laws in the Oaklawn area. And so now that we have achieved a lot of those goals in terms of increasing the safety of the area, in terms of increasing the property value, the beautification of the city, I think we've accomplished those goals. And now that we have, I think it's time to, outside of a few things, revisit that and see what makes the most sense for 2021 and not 1985.
Thank you, Michael. And Sonia, last response. Please tell us of your knowledge of PD 193 and any changes you think are necessary. Sonia may have dropped off.
She did, Micah.
That's all right. We'll move on to the next question. And this one is from Mayra. Mayra, are you still with us? If you are, we'll go ahead and unmute you to ask your question. Okay, not hearing that, I will ask it for her. I'll ask Micah to keep track of the order that the candidates will answer, and I'm sorry, I've lost track. What, if any, is your plan to address youth experiencing homelessness, specifically youth? And Micah is up
second
first.
last time, if you'd like to go first.
Who is that, Micah?
Sorry, is that question directed to me?
Yeah,
yes, Jennifer.
Jennifer, if you'd like to answer first, then we'll go to Jesse, then Michael.
Okay, sure. Youth homelessness. So this city suffers from a huge youth homeless issue. I know that there was a public-private partnership that created After Eight to Educate, but it is not enough. We are suffering with this now with the lack of youth homelessness, because we have a convention center that is going to be housing 3,000 youth that are migrants, and they don't have anywhere to place them. There are CPS offices right now that are housing youth because there isn't enough placement for them. We have a huge issue here. What I would say is that we would need to activate the shelters that we do have. We would need to create a plan that would activate the ones that are for youth shelters, and to create more beds, and to create a partnership with Dallas ISD to take the After 8 to Educate model and fix it and make it to something that actually works, because unfortunately After 8 to Educate hasn't even been opened yet, and that's still only 29 beds. We have Dallas ISD identifies 4,500 youth homeless in this city. Yet no one is talking about this issue. We need to also work with a lot of homeless youth are put into the juvenile system because there's nowhere to put them. So I think we start with that. We start looking at where we start using our rec centers. We start using our libraries. We start using what the city has to create a safe space and to create opportunity and resources for youth. Like I've been saying this entire time, we do not have funding that goes to resources to make our community be safe. Our communities would be safe if they were able to have resources, and they don't. And this is a huge issue. I'm glad this was brought up. But my plan would be to work with the Metro Dallas Youth Association, to work with the groups that work with youth homelessness, and to create a plan that can work for the city, that utilizes everything we can to help fix this, so that we're not one of the cities in this country that have the largest amount of homeless youth. And that we could have solutions for when 3,000 migrants show up in our convention center.
Okay, fantastic. We'll go to Michael next with the same question. What, if any, is your plan to address youth experiencing homelessness in Dallas, and that's specifically youth?
Absolutely, and you'll have to apologize if you hear one of my dogs barking in the back, but I think that as far as homelessness, and especially youth homelessness goes, that this is not a one size fits all solution, right? Because we have three or four buckets when we usually look at homeless. So we have those that are legitimately just down on their luck and need some help. We have those that are suffering from a drug addiction. We have those that are suffering from a mental health issue, and so there's a lot of different solutions that we need to consider. So I think that, things that we're already doing, the city of Dallas last year bought 3 hotels in partnership with the Meadows Foundation. I think that's a great first step for transitional housing as far as that goes. The Austin Street Center, of course, is another great resource, but here's an answer you might not expect. I think that the government itself, or City Hall specifically, it needs to almost take a step back. We have the Office of Homeless Solutions that we put $12 million into every year. And since the inception of that committee or that office, we've seen our homeless population increase by 56%. So government's really good at screwing up these kinds of things. And I think we need to listen to the experts. We have someone here in Dallas, Ron Hall, the author of Same Kind of Different as Me. He's raised hundreds of millions of dollars to solve homeless issues in Atlanta, Houston, San Antonio, etc. And so I think we need to start, letting the experts handle this more. We have a lot of nonprofits, a lot of charitable organizations in Dallas that, if you make the phone call, we will have the people that are experts at solving these problems ready to help.
That's time.
So yeah.
Okay, fantastic. If we could go to Sana now, the same question. What's your plan, if any, to address youth experiencing homelessness, specifically youth?
Well, when it comes to youth experiencing homelessness in Dallas, we have to take a step back and actually look at poverty in Dallas. And we know that 90% of the student body population within DISD is at or below the poverty line. And you will see sometimes as many as 1 out of 4 children experiencing some type of homelessness. So when it comes to addressing homelessness, particularly with youth, this is what I was talking about earlier with a trauma-informed public safety model that addresses the re-traumatization, particularly of youth. I do not believe in criminalizing youth. I think that that specifically is hurting specific socioeconomic diverse backgrounds. And when we talk about marginalization of people, that right there will do it. So that's one thing. Another thing is I actually also have concerns with how much the city of Dallas has taken on its plate from an administrative standpoint in addressing homelessness and building this huge office when the resources are already on the ground and the city has not actualized any true benefits to addressing homelessness in our city. So I would rather like to see some of those funds be reallocated as grants or resources two people actually are
That's time, Sana.
And unfortunately, we kind of lost you a little bit there. We'll go to Jesse for the end of, or for that question, and then we'll ask one more question. So Jesse, if you could tell us what is your plan, if any, to address youth experiencing homelessness, specifically youth?
Sure, thank you. This should really be a county issue. Unfortunately, the county's failing us, and they're not doing their job. We know that when kids are aging out of foster care, we know that kids from the LGBTQ community are being kicked out of their homes. We need specific housing for just youth, and more in particular for LGBTQ youth. And so I would continue working with with Outlast Youth, with the City of Dallas, in particular the District 2 office, in allocating a or a citywide specific housing complex with not only the beds, but the resources, making sure that we're providing the resources for these youth who are going through a lot. And we have to be able there to uplift them and to make sure that we're doing it with compassion and that we are providing those resources so that they're successful residents of the City of Dallas.
Thank you, Jesse. We're down to our very last question from the forum. This one is from a District 2 resident, Ian Saint. If you'd like to join video and unmute to ask your question. And while this is the last question of our candidate forum, the conversation, of course, will continue with standard whiskey and politics from Reform Dallas following the final responses. So Ian, if you're online, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So my name is Ian Saint, and I'm in Deep Ellum, which District 2 includes. It's an entertainment district. People come here to congregate, let loose, many drink, some do things that could get them arrested, that further inhibit their behavior, or actually the opposite. Anyway, the pandemic has really hit the neighborhood businesses hard because many of those businesses rely upon high in-person patronage for revenue, especially the live entertainment venues. And a lot of them are mom and pop owned, including those live entertainment venues. The governor has lifted capacity cuts, but I think of a venue like the Bomb Factory, that's an indoor venue that holds 4,300 people. It would be unethical for them to hold a show that brings that many people while we're still going through the pandemic, but that also hurts their revenue. And it doesn't look like we can really count on the state for adequate assistance, and even the federal government to some extent. So I'd like to know, what would you like to do for those businesses in Deep Ellum in this district that are really struggling with that cut in revenue from the lower patronage, whether it's mandated or because people just don't feel safe going to those high capacity events?
Thank you so much, Ian. We're going to go to Michael first, then Jesse, Sonia, and Jennifer. To recap, the pandemic has hit neighborhoods hard, neighborhood businesses in Deep Ellum very hard. Many are mom and pop owned. What can you do to support these small businesses? Michael, go ahead.
Sure. So that's a great question. And I think that it's an extremely valid concern and issue that we're facing here in District 2. So there's a litany of things that we can do. Some things that I would suggest would be giving either a deferment or a reduction in sales tax for businesses that are switching to that rely on a high in-person volume patronage And, if they switch to an e-commerce model for the time being until we are able to safely get back into in-person interaction, I think that we should defer those sales tax so that they get some relief that way, and a way to encourage more e-commerce shopping while we are still safely reopening our city. Outside of that, I think that we need to make sure that we extend and protect everything we can that the state and federal government has already done in terms of our PPE protection. And, I think we also just need to continue to be smart about our social distancing and listen to the experts and scientists so that we can return to a state of normalcy or that in-person patronage as quickly as possible. There's no easy answer to it, and there's going to be winners and losers, but I think that, incentivizing that e-commerce model and protecting PPE is a start, and, better than nothing.
Jesse, thank you, Michael. Jesse, your turn. What can you do to support small businesses, entertainment venues in neighborhoods like Deep Ellum?
Yeah, so I'm a small business owner. I've been affected directly from the pandemic. And so you have to pivot. We have to change our direction. District 2 has all the entertainment zones. It has the Farmers Market, Deep Ellum, Victory Park, Knox, Henderson, parts of Greenville. And the last thing we want to see is boarded up storefronts with loss of revenue, loss of jobs. And so something that we can do is continue supporting our locals. Shop Local Tuesday is an initiative. Something that my campaign's been doing is working with local bartenders and doing Zoom calls, letting our followers patronize those businesses safely, picking up at their stores and then taking it back home. The entertainment industry, the artists, that's the market that's been hit the hardest. And we have to be creative. We can do host outdoor events at our city parks. We can do closing our streets to traffic since there is less traffic going through, and opening up those spaces as public spaces, such as Crowdis Park and Deep Ellum, and bringing that to life, and just doing as many events outdoors as possible. Unfortunately, with taxes and whatnot, that's a state level. That's nothing that we can control here locally. But we can always try to encourage the state to do things like freezing taxes and whatnot. But
That's time, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. Sonia, your turn. The pandemic has hit neighborhood businesses in neighborhoods like Deep Ellum very hard. Many are mom and pop owned. What can you do to support these small businesses?
Okay, before I start talking, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We sure can, thanks.
Right, okay. When it comes to the governor's policy, it's been frustrating on a lot of levels, but businesses have reopened. And I tried to go to an event a couple of weeks ago, and I had my mask on, I've got my vaccine, and it was still difficult. I realized being around people in an indoor environment, I was not really comfortable with that yet. And so I do think that we're going to have some hesitancy from residents, from people who come to visit. The opportunity that I think we really have here is really presenting Dallas as a staycation or as a local option for people who are still not traveling because of COVID. The businesses that are hurting, they definitely had a lot of ground to make up. The sales tax situation, I agree. I mean, I think that what can be done from the state, I think that's definitely worth pursuing, but construction is really what kept us alive. So I don't know that that taking a hit on sales tax for the city would be beneficial for us, because it might affect some of our other services. But I think that the city has a platform, right? It has a very big communication network that it can utilize to really market some of our neighborhoods and some of our businesses, and really try to bring in people from different parts of the region. So I'd like to see something like that go into play, while really hoping that our Dallas businesses are
It's time,
respectful.
Sonia. I'm sorry.
And thank you, Sonia. Last question, last response is for you, Jennifer. Same question, of course. The pandemic has hit neighborhood businesses hard, particularly entertainment venues in Deep Ellum. Many are mom and pop owned. What can you do to support these small businesses?
So I think, as Lydia said, we have to look at things differently. We have to be innovative, and so we try to figure out how we can get more resources to small business owners, to small business, these mom and pop shops, and we look at automate and how to be innovative, how to help them be innovative as well. So we look at automated. A lot of the businesses end up doing this, but the ones that can have automated services. That we look at being innovative with minimal contact, that maybe they can still host a concert, we can have everybody inside. Maybe it's it's a fundraising type of technique, which we've seen people do and businesses do in other places like Austin, so we see how we can be creative and how can we help them. And more than anything, we create more access to the vaccine. So that once we have more access to the vaccine, then more people can come out and we can reopen all these businesses, and it can be safer for everyone. But I think really, as far as helping everybody right now, it's being innovative. One of the first things that we did when COVID struck us as a community, we started raising funds for certain small businesses and certain places that we went to, and we started raising awareness, us as a community, awareness of places that to go and places to spend your money and dollars at, because this is who really needs it at this time. So that's what I think we do in that, and we work with the system. We have to be innovative at these times like this. We can't have the same old ways. We have to change, and so I think we do that. We be innovative even with our small business owners.
That's time, Jennifer.
Jennifer, thank you so much. Of course, Whiskey and Politics is going to continue. We have several questions that many people have, including one that we will tackle as soon as our forum ends, from Pete Friedman. He's the publisher of Central Track, and he wants to know in a few moments the last show you've seen in Deep Ellum. But our last question of our official candidate forum has been asked, and I'll turn it over to Barry.
Absolutely, and that concludes the District 2 candidate forum from Reform Dallas. The recording will be available on reformdallas.io, where we'll also have a comprehensive election guide with resources on all candidates and on campaign finance. I'd like to thank all of the candidates in alphabetical order: Jennifer Cortez, Michael Fetzer, Jesse Moreno, and Sana Syed for joining us. The audience, of course, and the members of Reform Dallas who helped us put this together. It's the very first one of these that we've done tonight, and we thank you for bearing with us as we struggled through a little technical issues, but I thought it came off pretty well. Please stay on the Zoom meeting. Our regular Whiskey and Politics, which will have a lot more whiskey and maybe a little less politics, will begin immediately after we end here. Good night, everybody. I'm going to be dropping off really quickly as soon as I open up the chat and let everybody unmute themselves. Thanks again.
And this will be the official end of our recording. Whiskey and Politics begins right now.